Home Builders and Remodelers Association of Central Connecticut, and Joe Leach, Vice President of Operations with the HBRA. And today we have a very special guest with us, Jim Tobin, who is the Executive Vice President of Government Affairs and the Chief Lobbyist for the National Association of Home Builders. But even more important than that, Jim's a Connecticut native. And and welcome you back to Connecticut here, Jim, even though remote.
Yes, virtually back in Connecticut.
Virtually back in Connecticut. So in honor of you being back in Connecticut, I'm wearing my Hartford Whalers t-shirt today. And
very nice.
Bring you back a bit. And actually, I have a little something for you here, too. So
nice. I love it.
So I thought we would start this segment off with a little brass bonanza for you. So
I love it. Yeah, usually I'm slumming around here in the house if I don't have a webcam in my Yukon hoodie. So yeah, Sheila, it's great to be here. And Eric, thanks for having me. It's great to connect with y'all.
Thanks for joining us, Jim. And it's this has been like no other time that we can think of or imagine this past month or so. It's been absolutely crazy, and everybody's lives have been turned upside down. In many ways, but you guys have been extremely busy, and like us, you're working remotely and working from home. But obviously, the work doesn't stop at that point. So, tell us about what the National Association of Home Builders has been up to, and the efforts that you've had to help our members here in Connecticut and across the country.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it is an unusual time here, and I'm not so sure. You know, I've been through 9/11 in Washington, D.C. I've been through the 2000 meltdown, and this one is unlike anything I've ever seen. Sure, there were fears from the industry perspective in 2008, and of course, you had the kind of the panic during the week of 9/11, and what that means for DC. But to see an entire industry but entire state and region shut down, just like we're seeing across the country, it's definitely a different time. Having to lobby remotely. You don't get the feedback right away that you used to. Things seem to go into a black hole. You email the administration or you email the White House or the Hill, and you don't usually get a kind email back. You just don't get anything back now while everybody's trying to deal with this new reality. But we're as busy as ever, if even busier, because there are so many moving parts to this, and it feels very, very strange that a virus has caused all of this. But for us here, it's about trying to do what we can at the national level to keep the industry moving in this time. And so that's really taken on two different aspects. One is making sure that construction is considered an essential economic activity in this time in all of the states and by the federal government. And two, making sure that the government itself is responding to the crisis from a perspective of a stimulus or a economic stabilization way. And we've seen that so far with 3 different bills coming out of Congress. I anticipate another one, but then also our efforts inside the Department of Homeland Security and in the White House to make sure that the federal government recognizes construction is essential to the economy.
Yeah, you took the lead on organizing about 90 other organizations to make sure that Homeland Security made that designation. Correct?
Yeah, it was that was going back. We've now been at home for 3 weeks at NAHB, and for us that was pretty much the first thing we identified, especially as we watched these kind of rolling, I'll call them rolling blackouts of governors acting on their own, and kind of a post 9/11 world. There was an effort by Homeland Security once Homeland Security was created to create this list of essential infrastructure that should keep functioning in any kind of national emergency. And we saw the usual suspects: energy sector, clean water, usual things. But what we found was that list was being relied heavily upon by the governors when they decided what industries were essential for their own lockdown or stay-at-home orders. So it became imperative for us to get the federal government to recognize not only construction, but multifamily and single family, and then all of the different parts that go into that, meaning the closings and the inspections and the sawmills and the plumbers and the electricians, every aspect of what it takes to buy a piece of land, turn it into a house, and then sell it had to all be considered essential. And that was our main focus. We worked with all of our coalition partners, the realtors, the mortgage bankers, to do that. We assembled a coalition letter or coalition of 90 different organizations and companies across the home building sector to petition the Department of Homeland Security on behalf of that effort. And then we were rewarded last weekend with a ruling by DHS that all of those parts of the construction industry and remodelers, like the home builders, everybody were deemed essential. And now we're seeing more governors implement that document into their orders. So it's a big success for the industry.
Yes, thank you.
Obviously, everybody's heard about the CARE Act, the $2.2 trillion stimulus that was signed last week as well. Any high points you want to touch on for the industry?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, $2.2 trillion. It's such a staggering number. And remember, it started out as $1 billion, and it started out as $1 trillion, and you thought that was a lot, and then it just ballooned from there. And coupled with what the Fed is doing to stabilize the markets, it's something like $4 or $5 trillion that the government has injected into the economy. And think of it as more of an economic stabilization measure. We haven't even gotten to the recovery phase of this yet, and that will be for future packages. But what we saw in the bill that was signed by the president on Friday were a variety of things that are going to be very beneficial to our industry. Right off the top, small business loans that our members can take advantage of to keep their businesses afloat, retain their employees, and help pay some of those bills at kind of bridge loans between the economic activity of a month ago and hopefully the more fuller recovery in the months down the road. There's also one of those loans are going to be very beneficial to our state and local associations, allowing our organizations that are organized as 501c6s to be able to tap some of those loans as well. So that was really critical for us to try to make sure that we could keep our HBAs, because so many of them had to cancel home shows or trade shows, or they've watched a fall off in membership. That keeping you all going is as important to us as making sure our members are viable as well. A whole slew of tax provisions in there, an employee retention tax credit that if you can keep people on the books, enabling you to take a tax credit against payroll taxes. A payroll, I don't call it a holiday, but we'll call it forbearance in the short term. Not being able to have to pay your federal taxes for file for 90 days, but then also you can not pay half of your payroll taxes for this year. The idea being to keep more money in the business to keep you liquid in the short term. NOL carrybacks, net operating carrybacks for any losses this year. You can take them as credits against your previous filings. That's really important, as well as for those of our employers who are affected by sick employees or employees that have to stay home because their children are out of school and they need care for their kids. There are tax credits for those employers as well if they have to give their employees time off. So the government really did step in pretty rapidly to create a mechanism to keep people afloat in the short term.
Yes, thank you. Can you also speak to the banking benefits that is also listed in the CARES Act?
Sure. So two things, both single and multifamily. Obviously, everybody wants to keep people in shelter at this time. And so from a single family perspective, any mortgages that are backed by Fannie, Freddie, or FHA or rural housing, there is mortgage forbearance for people in the short term. They can, if they are affected by a coronavirus issue, obviously losing a job or any kind of economic hardship, they can apply to their mortgage servicer. They can apply for mortgage forbearance, and those monthly payments we tacked on to the end of the loan. People aren't going to get away with not paying, but they can again keep more money in their own pockets in the short term. Same thing goes for renters too. Any multifamily project that is backed by a mortgage with Fannie, Freddie, FHA, or rural housing, our landlords are prohibited from evicting people or evicting people based on non-payment of rent due to a coronavirus issue. Still allows people for legal purposes. If you've got a bad actor in the apartment who's is doing bad stuff, you can still evict people for criminal activity. But if they're having a hardship because of a loss of a job, then we're going to keep them in their apartments. Also allows for forbearance for multifamily property owners, so they don't have to pay their mortgages because they're going to lose the revenues from renters as well. So there's more holes to fill on those two fronts as we kind of figure out what the downstream effects are. But in the short term, there's some real help for people.
And also, I noticed that if our members do have to do the unfortunate thing and lay some members off, there are some unemployment benefits that are also listed in that CARES Act.
There are, and extended unemployment benefits, a little higher bump up in those monthly payments to help people get through very important for people as well. Also trying to help the employers on that front as well. So again, a lot of this depends on how long the pandemic drags out. But I have no doubt Congress will have to revisit some of these programs over the next couple of months.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's the since you're on the inside of everything going on in Washington, what's the inside scoop like right now? It's obviously you said a lot of it's remote, but is there more coming together of the two parties trying to find some this and work together, or is it kind of the same divided house that we've seen?
It depends on the day. How's that sound? I think I think Congress remains divided. If you notice who was at the Corona 3 signing package, there wasn't a Democrat to be found. So partisanship is still fairly alive and well here. I do think that right now the divide is over what the next package is going to look like. You saw the president come out yesterday and talk about another $2 trillion for infrastructure. Nancy Pelosi and the House House Democrats are trying to fill the void for the next stimulus package. So they're already staking out their claim, while Mitch McConnell and the Senate Republicans have said, can we at least see how the first packages work out and then figure out what we need? So there's a little bit of a disconnect about how we move forward. Congress isn't even going to come back. At least they're not scheduled to come back until April 20th. So we're already looking at 3 weeks of a pause, and then we'll see whether or not the health it's in Congress's best health to come back in 3 weeks. So I think things will drag out for a little bit, but we're not wasting any time. The next package is starting to be crafted, and we want to make sure that those issues that we spoke about that need to be filled, that we're at the forefront of getting those asks in the next package.
Absolutely, no, it's important, and also it seems like the presidential election has been on pause too. It's the primaries have stopped, and even going forward, it just seems like a different campaign than anybody's ever seen before.
Yeah, it's really strange. Fundraisers and just the kind of the collection of fundraising dollars is stopped. Though we do have, you'd be surprised to hear that people still want their checks, even if we can't meet with you. So that still happens. Joe Biden is live from his basement in Delaware, so that's an interesting deal. Talk about the time where Joe Biden should be stretching out as the front runner, the presumptive nominee, and really kind of setting his tone. He's unable to do that, at least in a mass way. I know he's doing a lot on Facebook and social and behind the scenes. The president obviously has the bully pulpit with his daily briefings on the virus response, but it's definitely a weird time. The political conventions are still going forward, the Democrats in July and then the Republicans in August. But who knows how long that goes. They're talking about paper ballots for the election. And then the polls are all messed up, right? I mean, if you think about it, Joe Biden took a lead last week. The president rebounded. Then the president's back behind. It's really hard to get a feel for where the race is. And especially, and this is such an unnatural time. So I wouldn't rely too many on national polls right now to figure out what's going on, but it's definitely weird.
Yeah, it is. This is uncharted territory. That's for
uncharted. Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
So, anything else going on at NAHB that you want to touch base on? Some of the normal issues that we have as priority issues, things like housing affordability, they haven't stopped, obviously, and they need to remain part of this. And obviously, as we're talking about keeping businesses going and changing the way that our members are doing business, keeping things as affordable as possible is very important.
That's right. We're already, right before the coronavirus hit the fan, we were knee deep in lobbying on an energy package that was moving through the Senate. And we felt very strongly if certain provisions were attached to it, we're going to raise the cost of housing through new energy requirements and a new mandate for the federal government to get involved in energy code writing. That bill has come to a screeching halt, thankfully. But the advocates who are pushing those onerous provisions, they haven't stopped either. They're trying to attach those things to the next stimulus bill. So while we're trying to protect affordability, trying to keep the industry afloat and keep people in their homes, we're still going to have to play defense when it comes to some of these programs that are going to decrease affordability. So it never ends. So we're always on the lookout. But I'm hopeful that things with this, as much as this is a pause and a reset with how we think about a lot of things in this country, maybe there's a new opportunity for us to think about housing in a different way and making sure we can keep things affordable now in the long term. So always never waste a crisis, as Rahm Emanuel once said. But we're vigilant on all our fronts.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are always out there at the forefront, always leading the industry and always making sure that the members, not just in Connecticut but across the country, are protected and being well represented in Washington. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for all you do. It's imperative though, as members dealing with things, please look at us as much as I know they look at the Connecticut state and the local associations to guide them through. Please, if there's anything we can do for you, any feedback that you have, programs that aren't working, frustrations that you have, please we're here to help as a resource for inside the three legs of the Federation. And anything we can do to pass along to lawmakers and in the White House is really right now as we craft the next response. We were on the phone with our senior officers yesterday with the Federal Reserve. Chairman Powell and all of the Fed governors were on board were on the phone call listening to the housing because they watch the housing markets very closely. So your voice is being heard at the highest levels of government. And so again, that feedback is really important for the job that I do. Whole federal team here in DC.
Thank you very much.
You got it.
Yes, Jim, thank you very much. We appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day to join us and to update our members about what's going on. The feedback from our members so far has been pretty positive that they're still moving, the projects are going forward. I was just talking to remodelers today that are still out bidding jobs right now, which is great. So we haven't seen too much damage right now. I know we've had members that have had to lay some people off and slow some things back and scale back a little bit, but we're still, construction is still going in Connecticut right now, at least. So,
Jim, could you share with us what they should be doing?
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. So this is a direct appeal to our members. There are people out there as construction remains essential. There are people driving around with nothing better to do and take pictures of job sites where there are more than 10 workers on a job site, having lunch, sitting around together, having lunch within 6 feet, more than 2 people within that 6-foot barrier. There are people that you get the governors and local governments to declare to take housing off the essential list and home construction off the essential list. Don't let that happen. Please post all of the DOL safe worksite posters all over your job sites. If you're the GC, please go to your job sites, check up on your workers, enforce upon them the critical nature of doing the right thing. Follow these guidelines. Please go to NAHB's website, nhb.org, to our coronavirus page. Our team, led by Dave Ledford and Rob Matuga, have put together a fantastic grouping of materials on how to run a job site to keep your workers safe from the virus. Keep your homeowner safe if you're a remodeler, but more importantly, keep the industry building and doing the right thing. It's really, really important for us to do that because I'm telling you, there's people out there that are trying to play gotcha with us, and we can't let that happen because they will shut construction down. We saw it in California. 6 counties overnight shut down construction, even though the governor of California has declared construction essential. Some people are taking measures into their own hands. Don't let them do that.
Yes, it's very important. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll be getting those criteria out to the members from your website as well to make sure that they're posting those regulations and practicing safe work sites.
Great.
Excellent. Well, Jim, thank you very much. We look forward to seeing you soon. If not before that, we will look forward to seeing you at the Build Pack Golf Tournament at the TPC.
As my mother would say, from your lips to God's ears.
That's right.
I promise I'll stay 6 feet away from you, Goldie. You don't have to. That's what you do. Well, he's always in the woods anyway, so he's not anywhere near the fairway. So don't.
That's right. Yeah, you don't have to worry about being near Greg on a golf course. So.
No, definitely. That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, Jim Tobin, thank you very much. Jim's, again, is the Executive Vice President of Government Affairs and the Chief Lobbyist for the National Association of Home Builders. Thank you again so much for taking some time out of your busy schedule and joining us. And be well. Our best to your family as well and to the rest of the HB staff.
Great. Thank you very much. Go Huskies.
That's right.
Thank you, Jim.